All right. Hi there, everybody. My name is Mary Kate McDonough. I work here at Integro, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I see we have some new attendees as well as some we recognize here, so thank you to everyone for taking some time to attend and learn today about platform modernization. Today, we are lucky enough to have two experts from our consulting team presenting, Jeff Dunning and Martin Willingham. Both work on the front line with our customers every day, helping them solve a variety of platform modernization challenges and goals. It's a privilege to have them with us to share their expertise and direct experiences today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We do have a polling question, so this will come up shortly in the presentation and be on the lookout to answer that. Lastly, you will see a questions box on the screen, so make sure to ask any questions you have there and we'll get to them at the end of our presentation. All right, we have 30 minutes scheduled, so we're going to get started, and I'll hand it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Well, welcome, everyone. Martin, if you can go to the next slide, please. Today, first, a quick thing. Some of you that are familiar with Integro have seen this before, but this is our framework that we've been working with our client base on around various topics when it comes to content, between analysis and cleanup and process automation. Today, we're really going to focus on the platform modernization box here in our framework. Platform modernization is wide-ranging, covers lots of things. It's movement to the cloud, retiring file shares. We do work with archives and just helping customers with their information architecture. But really, today, we're going to focus on modernizing the platform, or really around technologies for hybrid cloud and containers and Dockers, just new virtualization technologies, which really lend well to a lot of benefits in that world. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those benefits here on the next slide. So Martin, if you just advance. So platform modernization, why, right? There's two big topics in today's conversation: hybrid cloud technologies and what is that, how is that helpful? Why are organizations moving there? And really the driving force around that is separating workloads, the less sensitive workloads, being able to move them to the cloud, scalability for temporary processing needs, the ability to scale very quickly and to scale both on-prem and in the cloud simultaneously. So there's a lot of flexibility around how you build that organization out and how you kind of scale up and down based on your various workloads. And then we're going to talk a lot about Dockers, virtualization, and where software vendors, IBM and others, are going in this space. Standardization across environments, repeatable deployment. Martin will show us a lot of simple techniques to go from, to scale out servers, go from one server to the other. Talk a little bit about how we can easily spin up dev and test environments, maintain that compatibility and maintainability. But it's really about being agile, easy to scale, easy to upgrade, and those types of things. So we're getting away from that heavy install a lot of software, big dollar signs around upgrades and that type of stuff. So those are the topics we're going to talk about. Before we get started into that, we're just going to take a quick poll question, see where everybody's at. And the poll question is really, where are you in the process of implementing containers for your applications? Just to kind of get a feel for where everybody is in that space. Are we, just curious about it? Are we actually working there? Trying to get a feel for where everybody's at with this. So we can get everybody to kind of click in here and answer, and give it a second here. And Mary Kate, I don't know how the results are coming in, but
yeah, so we are getting a lot of responses. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to give it just a few more seconds, and then I'll let you know when I have it closed, Jeff.
Okay. Great. So we'll get a feel for what our audience here and where they are at in this process.
All right, everyone, I'm going to close it. We have a lot of you voted, so thank you for that. I'm closing it now. Let's see. And Jeff, can you see the answers?
I cannot. So if you kind of, oh, here we go. So it looks like a lot of us are really in those opening stages. So curious about what's going on, considering implementing. So this is a really good webinar to help us kind of level set with a lot of things going on. So it's good feel for where everybody's at in this. So from here, what I'm doing is I'm going to turn this conversation over to Martin Willingham. He's one of our senior consultants here at Integro, has done a lot of work in this space with IBM technologies and others around containers. So Martin?
Okay, thank you everybody. First of all, I think we should go over a few definitions because some people may have heard the term Docker or containers or Kubernetes, but might not be real clear on what those are. So I'm just going to run through this real quick. A container is it's really a unit of processing, typically used for running one type of application at a time, running it well, running it fast, spreading those resources around efficiently. Each container contains just enough software to run it. It does use the kernel of the underlying operating system, but it's very lightweight. It has all the code, the runtime, the tools, libraries to do the job. Docker is an open source project that implements containers. So a lot of times you'll hear Docker and container as synonyms. They're not exactly synonyms, but for our purposes, when you say running a Docker container, that's what we're talking about. Kubernetes is an orchestration platform or management platform for managing your different containers. It's possible to run a single container at once, or maybe run multiple containers just manually deployed, and you can even have them communicate with each other, but there's no way for really good management. So that's where Kubernetes steps in. It's an excellent product for managing your deployments. It keeps, it handles the load balancing, the networking, the security, access to the external storage. And IBM Cloud Private, ICP, we'll call it ICP from here on out, that is IBM's platform for managing containers, and it is under the covers. It includes Kubernetes as well as quite a few other things, management console, monitoring framework. It looks and feels like IBM Cloud, if you've seen that. It has a catalog that you can select new applications to deploy. It handles the different names, what's called namespaces or different environments. It can run in IBM's cloud environment. It can also run on others like Google or Amazon AWS, Azure, etc. And then lastly, IBM's DBA or Digital Business Automation is IBM's suite of business products that includes content, workflow, decisions, and data capture. My specialty is FileNet products, so that's where the FileNet falls. So that includes FileNet, Case Manager, BPM, and all the other products related to that. So that hopefully helps you understand, if you're not familiar with these terms, what we're talking about going forward. Some of the benefits of containers, and this is just a little depiction of how it improves the resources. If you look on the left, a typical physical environment that you have servers and infrastructure and VMs, you can see that it's got, they both virtual machines and the container environment have an underlying physical infrastructure with operating systems. And then with the VM environment, you also, for each server, you have to have its own guest operating system. And then the applications and libraries are built on top of that. Whereas with a container environment, you don't have the guest operating system. So you've eliminated a lot of the bulk. So that's just a kind of a nice picture to show you the improved resource handling. Okay, some of the benefits of running DBA in ICP or in a Kubernetes environment. As Jeff mentioned earlier, you can deploy these really quickly. They can be scripted and automated. If If you want to move to another environment, you can point to a different namespace and spin up your new environment really quick. You have 0 downtime for patching. You have rolling upgrades. You can roll back an upgrade in case it failed or you're not happy with it. Much better resource usage and management. One great thing is it uses WebSphere Liberty Edition, which is a very lightweight, it's fast, it's an edition of WebSphere. So typically if a customer has a multi-node environment, they'll use WebSphere network deployment, and it handles a lot of the load balancing and resource handling, and it's a great product. It's very heavy and it's expensive. But because Kubernetes is handling all the load balancing and resource handling, you can use WebSphere Liberty, which is much smaller and lightweight. As Jeff mentioned, we can do dynamic scalability, and I'll show you a few screenshots at the end, how easy it is to scale up and scale down. There are a lot of, with ICP, there are a lot of pre-installed software packages, especially for monitoring and logging. These are not included in a license deal. It's just they're free to install. And then finally, the platform modernization. You're keeping up with technology. In the old days, we used physical servers. Then we moved to virtual machines. Now we're moving towards container environments, and maybe some of the applications will move eventually to serverless. And so you're on the path to keep up with this kind of improvement. In addition, on-premises to cloud is definitely not going anywhere. We're moving that way, as you can see with your email and your box and Dropbox and all that. You can see how it's important to start thinking about the cloud. As far as what packages are available as a container, you can see on the left, these are products that are available that you can download from IBM as a container package. And that includes the FileNet products, the content engine, content search, CMIS, and external share. You can also get Navigator and ODM and BAI. Some of the products are not containerized, but you can communicate to the containers from these products. That includes RPA, ICC, DataCap, any WSI-based tool. And in addition, as part of ICP for multi-cloud, you have the workflow engine. It's currently not running in containers. I believe IBM has got that on its roadmap. I'm not sure of the time frame. This is a screen I considered not putting in here, but I thought it was interesting. With containers, containers are meant for processing, not data storage. So they need to, when you have multiple nodes, multiple instances of an application all as a container, you need to point to storage in many cases. For example, in a FileNet environment, you point to your database, you point to your content stores. Well, all of your container nodes need to be able to communicate to this storage. So the way it works is the containers point to a persistent volume claim, as you can see on the right. The containers themselves think they're talking to a local file system when really they're pointing to, the Kubernetes is pointing to a persistent volume claim, which points to a persistent volume, which points to the actual storage. So that's the way the storage is handled in a Kubernetes ICP environment. That's just an example. So now next we're going to talk about benefits of moving to cloud. And these 4 bullet points are really often pushbacks that why someone might not want to go to the cloud. And typically they're worried about security, they're concerned about their end user or their location's performance to get to their data in the cloud. They're concerned about reliability maybe in the cloud, and they're concerned about cost. And in each of these cases, there's a very good likelihood that you're going to be better suited in the cloud than you are locally. With security, and I won't read through every one of these items, but with security is most of the IBM cloud providers, at least the big ones, really they put their main priority in security. They don't want any data breaches. The zones that you are assigned are isolated in many different ways. Their facilities are secure. You have encryption in flight and at rest. Those things aren't that easy to do in a local on-premise facility, but with cloud providers, they usually are pretty easy. Performance, you have a lot of different resource types. You can scale up, scale down, not just in the number of resources you're running, but in the types. You could start running a faster node, and if you're paying more than you need, you can scale down to a slower node or an instance type. You have all kinds of things that improve the performance. Reliability, and all these can be done in a local infrastructure, but it's very costly. But in the cloud, you have redundancy, disaster recovery, load balancing, snapshots. All these things improve your reliability and are very easy to implement. As far as cost, you only pay, depending on how you purchase your servers or your resources, you only pay for the hours used or the type used. You can auto scale up and down. You can scale up in case of it's a high time, like month end. You can scale down at night, on weekends. You're only paying for what you need instead of having to ramp up your whole infrastructure just to cover the peak time. That's the same with storage. You might be doing a migration project and you need a lot of storage. Well, in an on-site environment, you have to buy all that storage just for those peaks. Whereas with the cloud, you only pay for what you use in many cases, or maybe for the transactions, like for a database. Okay, so you have really two choices here to implement DBA in what we're talking about. You have the location, and these are independent choices. These two things are independent from each other. So you have the location. Do you want to implement your DBA application on premises or in the cloud, or a hybrid of both, or some sort of transition migration where you're using a little of each? Then the type of deployment, traditional with physical servers or with VMs, you can run either of these on location or in the cloud. We can run container environments on premises. We can run container environments in the cloud. Same with virtual machines. The exception is an actual service like IBM offers, like FileNet in the cloud. That would just be obviously in the cloud. This is an example of, let's say you are interested in moving your FileNet P8 environment to a containerized option. How do you go about doing this? It's a common question, and there are three choices here that I've laid out. One is a side-by-side deployment, where you're actually running the container servers and the current VMs at the same time using the same data. And how you have to do that is you have to upgrade your original environment, your source environment, to basically the latest, which is 5.5.x, which is right now 5.5.2. But you have to upgrade your source P8 to the latest. You build your ICP environment. You connect your ICP environment that FileNet's running on to your same source data, your database, your LDAP, your EAR file, and then you can run them both at the same time. And then if you're satisfied, or if you just want to test in that environment, you can shut down your source servers. Everything stays running. You're still connecting to your database. You're still connecting to your file stores, and everything's running. You can compare everything, compare speed. And then if you're satisfied, you could just turn those old servers off. Another way is to upgrade to a container. Let's say you don't want to upgrade your old system to 5.5. And assuming it's already at 5.2, which is pretty old, hopefully you've at least gotten to that far, you could build your ICP server, stop your source servers, connect your ICP environment to your source data, just like you did in the first step, in the first option, and then your P8 data will be automatically upgraded to 5.5. Okay, that's an in-place upgrade. The final option would be if you wanted to move to a cloud, obviously you have to move your data to the cloud. So it would be very similar to the middle option, except you have to copy your data to your cloud environment. Of course, there's a lot of different variations of this, but these are the three main categories. Now, as Jeff said, I'm just going to show you just a couple of screenshots. This is just one small area of how beneficial it is to use containers to increase scale, the scale of the systems you're running. So, for example, Content Navigator, you can see in this top screen, this is an IBM Cloud user interface, show in the deployment. And the second listing here is for Navigator. And you can see right now it's running one instance. Let's say I want to run 2 instances, or 3 or 4 or 20. I just changed the scale. And down here at the bottom screen is a command line version of the exact same listing of deployments. You can see down here, Navigator is running 1 instance. So next I want to increase that to 2. So you just select the instance, you increase it to 2. Down here is the same thing. You kubectl, that's a Kubernetes command. Scale the deployment of Navigator to 2. Replicas equals 2. So when I ran that, it only took a few seconds, and now you can see that I just reran the same things as in the first screenshot. Navigators are now running 2. Get deployments, Navigator is running 2. And so that's how easy it is to increase the number of instances of Navigator. You could do the same thing with your other deployments, and as long as you have the resources built into your ICP cluster, there is no need to do anything else. Now, just imagine how much you have to do if you wanted to do something similar with a VM environment or a WebSphere ND environment. You have to increase your either some combination of servers, hosts, nodes, instances. You would have to set up your load balancing or your DNS. You'd have to expose your servers to the backend storage, possibly. Here, there's no need to do any of that. ICP handles all of the load balancing, the DNS, the access to storage. It handles all the crash resistance. It automatically restarts nodes of an application if they're down. So it's very easy to go up and down, and that's just scalability. That's just one small nugget of things you can do in here. So that's the end of my presentation. I think next is some questions, if you have any questions.
Awesome. So yeah, looks like we have a couple minutes here, so plenty of time for questions. I do have one here for you. If you need me to repeat it, just let me know. But says, our organization is completely cloud native. Why would we consider leveraging hybrid cloud?
If your application is cloud native?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, Mary-Kate?
Yeah, no problem. So it says, our organization is completely cloud native. Why would we consider leveraging hybrid cloud?
So if the applications are already in the cloud, and hybrid cloud means that you're using some parts of your applications in the cloud and some on premises, then the only reason I could think to use hybrid would be if you had some sort of security issue where you needed your data to be, some of your data to be stored on premises, security or maybe performance.
Awesome, thank you. And then we have another question here. It says, once you have built up one environment, how easy is to set up a second environment for dev or test?
Good question. So if you have one environment running in ICP and you want to duplicate that maybe for another environment for test or for sandbox, or maybe you're moving to production, you have to copy the backend data to you make a copy of it wherever you're going to point your new environment to, and then you everything in Kubernetes or an ICP has got configuration files and command line. So usually you are already created the script to deploy your environment. So all you have to do is create the new namespace in ICP. It's a new separated instance. And you point your scripts to the new namespace and the copied versions of your data and click deploy or press enter on your deploy scripts, and boom, it's done in a very short amount of time.
Great, thank you. And we do have some more coming in. The next one is there a schedule of data cap to be containerized?
That would be an IBM question. I know data cap pretty well, and I don't see it becoming containerized. But data cap, there is another capture product called Content Analyzer, which is I don't know if it's actually out yet, but I've seen it. I haven't used it yet, but it is cloud-based completely and can be called from these environments. So that's one way to Content Analyzer is it's not a complete replacement of data cap by any means, but it is a data capture product. Data cap, I don't know. That's really an IBM question. Hopefully I answered that.
Thank you, Martin. And so it looks like we just have one more question. So just for everybody who attended today, thank you again. I do want to let you know there's a survey that will come out right after the webinar. So if you have a couple minutes to fill that out for us, that would be awesome. So just one more question here for you, Martin, and then I'll let you sign it off. Let's see. It says, has IBM seen performance and efficiencies as it has containerized its content management systems?
That's a really great question, and I haven't been able to find any performance metrics to compare these two. I would think it would largely depend on the type of resources you have in your back end, because with containers and in the cloud and all, you have such a variety of types of resources. So I hate to be on the other end of this, but I don't have a really good answer. But it's certainly something I can check into further. I guess that's it. I thank everybody for joining. Hopefully you've learned a little something. If you have any questions, please contact us at Integro, and we'd be happy to talk to you, do a workshop, or whatever you prefer. Thank you.